What's up, everybody? It is Wednesday night. It is week 3 of the season. You already know what time it is. It's time for SEC After Dark. Welcome in. Man, this is my favorite day of the week, favorite night of the week. Man, I get to party with you guys here in I don't know what we're going to call this set, if we're going to give it a nickname, but we'll think about that and brainstorm on that. But it is like a holiday.
It's the Louvre.
The Louvre of college football right here. And it's a holiday every Wednesday. So joining me is the Steven Willis from Locked On Ole Miss, Jeb Beecham, who is we're just going to call his podcast Under Construction.
There you go.
Actually, we're going to call it the McDonald's ice cream machine because it's always
it never works.
Well, I think we're going to call it the Pardon My Progress podcast.
There we go.
And then we got Jake Thomas, Tide Talk Live, soon to be. What is it going to be? Bama After Dark?
Bama After Dark.
Bama After Dark. Boss Man is with us, Biscuits and SEC. Your other half should be coming in here pretty soon. And I'm Corey Burton of the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast and the Locked On Vandy podcast. And joining me now is the Hammer himself.
What's up, y'all? Sorry, I'm a minute late here.
Where is he?
Actually, he's been here the whole time, but he's in camouflage. Like Flintstones.
There he is. Oh, you
hey.
Hey.
Snuck up on y'all.
Yeah.
Hopefully A&M will do the same thing this weekend.
Yeah.
If you have to sneak up on Florida, you got Music City Ball problems.
You got big problems.
We haven't won a road game since 2021.
What, 3 years? I saw.
I'll take it. No matter how it happens, I'll take it.
Wow. It's not good.
That's awful.
But guys,
Billy Napier hasn't even heard who Wally Pipp is, so
he's not there yet. But you know what? We're going to do picks later on, and we'll talk about
picks.
Those picks are going to be presented by BetOnline.ag, your number one source for all of your sports wagering needs. If you want to bet it, they have it at BetOnline.ag. They have live odds that you can bet on while you are watching these NFL and college games. They have whatever you want, futures. They have all kind of stuff. They also have a live casino, which makes it fun. So when you're bored, you can go and play craps or roulette or poker or whatever it is that floats your boat in the casino. So visit betonline.ag, enter the promo code BELIEVE, and you get a 50% added bonus to your first bet. So it's where the game starts. Steve, tell us about the pickles.
Well, it's time to get locked on pickles. Stewart's Cajun Pickles, that is, they offer a variety of Cajun spice products like pickles, green beans, okra, even carrots and asparagus. This is a family-owned company. They're homemade on the coast of Mississippi. Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles have been pleasing pickle lovers for over 20 years, and now they've become the South's favorite pickle. These truly are the best pickles you will ever have. They like to keep the produce fresh and local from the start, so the pickle product in the end can be nice and crisp and crunchy. Find these pickle products online at pickledstore.com or at your local Rouse's Market or other Gulf Coast Southern stores near you. Be sure to like Stewart's Cajun Dill product on Facebook and Instagram. Try these pickles, okra, or beans today. You will not be disappointed. Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles, the South's favorite pickle. And before we start, I'm going to do something that Corey is going to cringe, but I promise this isn't a political post.
Oh, you make me cringe this time. It's usually the other way around. I love making you cringe. It's a lot of fun.
My favorite thing today on Twitter was like we found the aliens in Springfield that's eating the cats, and it was pictures of Alf. That was all over. And anytime you can see Alf is hilarious.
It's kind of a Gen X deep cut, but I like it.
Yes, it was so awesome.
I love Alf.
There's like 17 people that got that joke, and I'm just sitting here looking at that thing. Every time I saw that, I laughed for like 5 minutes.
You know who Alf is?
Who, me?
You're the kid.
TV. He's like a fuzzy TV guy. I don't know.
Yeah, he had like a long nose or something.
An alien.
Yeah. I don't know why they
anteater.
Yeah. That's a good description. Yeah.
It's like an alien anteater.
I think did it stand for like alien life form or something like that? Alf.
Yeah.
I think it actually meant something.
Have y'all ever seen the pictures of what the actual set looked like in that show? It was basically a lawsuit waiting to happen for the human actors that were there, because basically there were tiles and holes open in the floor so people could go underneath and operate the Alf puppet. And yeah, so you couldn't, that's the reason on the show there wasn't very much moving around, because there were basically holes everywhere. They were basically free. Other than the couch and all that, you never saw the floor because there was no floor.
And that's called a great show.
Mhm.
So, guys,
There you go, everybody.
Is Texas legit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, good Lord. That was an ass beating.
I think we've wandered into that territory to where Texas might actually be back.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we have.
What-
Sorry,
what-
Becky.
You say
What
that,
they-
as soon
yeah,
as you
what
say
they, what
that,
they,
they go down. So
Yeah.
keep saying that they're
Hey.
back.
yeah,
Yeah.
but this has
They
been
really might be.
prophesized for like 55 years. I mean, every year they've been saying that, but this year it might actually be the case. But there's always the chance that Michigan's just not good.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
it's a combination of that, but still to win like that in the big house, you have to play well to jump on Michigan in the big house, because it's a place to play. But even if Michigan's bad, they always give you a run in their own house. But Quinn Ewers was dialed in. They couldn't do it.
Corey, your microphone's going
Yeah,
out.
you need to close your windows on your computer, Corey. Did Jeb go over to your house?
Yeah,
He did. He searched Georgia all whites on my computer.
there's a running joke with that boss man and hammer. Y'all hadn't seen. Yeah,
Yeah, Jeb's not allowed to just randomly Google things. Because,
no,
You're going to learn all of our inside jokes. This whole
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We'll get it by the end of the year, I'm sure.
yeah.
oh yeah,
We need to give you a glossary of terms.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Yeah.
yeah.
Study
Corey's over
those.
there playing Minesweeper while he's talking.
Hey, don't hate on Minesweeper. That's a great game. Am I still going in and out?
No,
No, you're
now.
fine
No.
now.
Yeah.
Would you close?
Minesweeper. Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah,
Corey multitask. You know, he's also talking about his hot takes for the Saturday football games, and he's completing a Wordle.
Wordle. No. Words with
Who can
friends.
blame him?
Words with friends, man. I'm stuck in 2015.
I was gonna say.
He's,
I played
he's
that
making,
for you.
Jake
he's
was in high
making
school.
sure his crops are growing. He's playing Farmville.
oh
Candy
gosh,
Crush, bro. Candy Crush. It's the game right there. Fruit Ninja.
Good old Candy Crush.
Fruit
And
Ninja. You guys
Angry
remember that one?
Birds.
Angry Birds. That was a great
golly,
game. That game was so big they had a jersey sponsor across the Barclays Premier League,
Yeah.
yeah.
and we just lost 20 viewers.
You better-
Everybody's like, what is going on with these guys
Yeah.
tonight?
These if there's anybody new on the broadcast, off the rails is actually a normal thing for us.
right.
We're rarely on the rails, just so you know. But we were well behaved the first 2 weeks of the regular season there, but this thing's going to deteriorate pretty soon.
Well, the thing about it is Texas does look legit. They do look like they're back. And coming up, they still have a few weeks before their big Georgia game. I guess it's the middle of October that game pops up. So I guess that's the point where we'll really find out if they're back. Until then, it's just a whole bunch of hearing about them talking about them being back.
Yeah, it seems like it's fairly smooth sailing, except for the Georgia game. They've got a couple other games on their schedule, but in terms of an SEC schedule in their first year, it couldn't have gone better for Texas.
Yeah.
It's almost so simple that it looks like it was a gift from Greg Sankey. But I'm not. Hey, as an Aggie, I'm always thinking that Texas is skating by. But
The other side of that coin is Oklahoma.
Hey, they got to go to
God.
Vandy. Don't sleep.
yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah, dude, Diego Pavia is going to Pavia them.
Vandy's,
right.
I think
Michigan
Vandy's
wishes
the only
they had
team in
Diego
the
Pavia.
SEC Vandy's the only team in the SEC that has a winning record all time against Texas.
yeah.
I mean, Sharks.
They're 7-3 against the Longhorns,
That is
so they're going to
wild.
have it for about a decade. Now they haven't played since 1920, and used to Vandy was hell back then.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you though. I never would have believed the whole they take it easy on Texas thing until this year. Now I'm on their side. That's
Yeah,
That's
what
casual.
Oklahoma.
Forever. So
It's like
Their
what
first-
did Oklahoma do to deserve this?
yeah.
That's
I know
right.
you look at the rest of Texas schedule. I think outside of Georgia obviously will be a tough game and will be ranked. The rest of their schedule, they might not play a ranked team, depending on obviously what A&M turns out to be, and Oklahoma, because Oklahoma's got Tennessee before Texas. Like, who knows where Oklahoma could be? Like, they very well, depending on what happens, might have just basically Georgia in terms of a ranked opponent left.
Screw that. Vandy's going to be ranked. What are you talking about?
True.
Facts.
True.
Facts.
I think the whole SEC needs actually A&M to come through at the end of the year. The game's in Kyle Field. That's going to be it's going to be absolutely nuts. And Texas has to prove that they can beat Oklahoma before that. I'll assume that that's going to happen.
Yeah, they get Oklahoma, then Georgia. That's a tough little 2-game stretch, but it's sandwiched with games against Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, as much as I love Vanderbilt.
That's in Nashville, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I might actually have to go to First Bank Stadium for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Might actually have to step into the house.
I love what SEC Shorts is doing right now with Vanderbilt.
That's great.
I love that so much.
It's so great, man.
It is good stuff.
Yeah, they've been killing it so far. Week 1, week 2, been awesome.
They don't miss. I don't think they've missed for however long they've been doing it, 8 years.
Yeah.
They generally do nail it.
So LSU is going to South Carolina, 11 a.m. game on ABC Saturday. It's going
the
to
ultimate head scratcher bowl.
It's a game.
Yeah.
It's a game. There, LSU supposedly has the best offensive line in the country, but cannot run the ball.
Nope.
South Carolina's offense is, I don't know, to be generous, 1984. You know, they do it out of the shotgun, but it's nothing's really working for them.
They have a quarterback.
South Carolina's defense is pretty good. LSU's defense is atrocious, but LSU can throw the football, which means if they get the passing game going, maybe they can score some points. I genuinely don't know what I'm going to do when we pick this game.
I don't really either, because South Carolina tried to give the game away several times at Kentucky, and then they finally just said, okay, you don't want to give it to us. We'll just run off like five touchdowns in a row.
That's crazy.
It was the ugliest game of all time.
That game made no sense. I was watching it, and then you look at the box score after, and you're like, how was this 31-6? It just, none of this makes sense. Kentucky completely looked lost. I think all of us were on them going into that game. So that was a massive letdown. And then even South Carolina, I know they had the pick 6. So you score 24 offensive points. I think they had 250 total yards. I'm like, where did any of this even come from? It was like they had a couple good drives, and then the rest of it is just 3 and outs. It was bizarre what took place at the big grocery bag last week.
They should have had 3 pick 6s themselves, and they dropped them all.
Yeah. But this is my theory on Kentucky, and tell me if y'all think y'all agree with me a little bit. Mark Stoops bailed on that team and was going to go to Texas A&M until that fell through at the last second, and then he slurked back to Kentucky. This was the first football game that I saw a Kentucky team quit.
I've been saying that all along, Steve.
Yeah, and it's one thing where it's like, okay, you left to go to Texas A&M. Why should we keep holding the rope for you in a game like this where it doesn't seem to go right? And also, Brock Vandegrift, oh my goodness, Kentucky is about 2 weeks away from running the Notre Dame box offensively. It's terrible.
Yeah, this is bad. This is really bad, and it gets really easy for them this week against Georgia, where they have a little familiarity with the quarterback.
Yeah, everything that they know exactly what he can't do.
Yeah,
they graded him meticulously,
and until they learn how to block, I mean, he had a terrible game, but they could not block South Carolina to save their life. Their offensive line was getting whooped, which I do think South Carolina's got a good D line, but man,
that freshman is legit.
Yeah.
That kid is good, and then Williams-Brice, he's going to be a problem for LSU Saturday.
Yeah, he will be. Too bad they're like the thing about South Carolina though is they don't have enough of that. They're a freaking roller coaster, and I don't know if that's good enough to beat LSU.
Yeah,
that's the question. With Kentucky, I don't know. it feels like the middle of the conference and even somewhat at the top of the conference, like with Alabama and USF. I know, Jake, you're going to talk a little bit about that when we get to picks, but I mean, that was very surprising. Just like last year, they walk into the Bulls Stadium last year, and they did not have a good day, and it happened again this year.
Last year was a weird game. I'll chalk last year's game up to being a weird weather delay game, but this year's game was
hurricane.
That was awful.
Yeah, that was wild. So and then with the middle of the conference, it's another year of kind of. But even this year, it seems more so of what the heck is going on. You have no clue from week to week. I mean, we're poo-pooing Brock Vandegrift. I can never say his name, Brock Vandegrift. But last week we were praising him because he looked so good. And I know that he did not play well in that game against South Carolina, but he played very well the week before. And I know that it was a lesser opponent, but it doesn't make sense how badly he played against South Carolina. South Carolina has a good defense, but Kentucky should have been able to move the ball on them, especially with the weapons that we talked about. I talked about them last week, which is why I picked Kentucky. They've got all these weapons on the outside. How can they not get the ball to them? And you saw some Georgia fans popping up. I'm sure you saw this all over Corey as well, that Georgia fans were popping up and talking about, well, this is why Kirby let him walk, because he's been seeing this in practice for many years, that the turnovers have been there. He doesn't have quick decision-making. And we saw that big time against South Carolina. Like you said, it doesn't get any easier against Georgia this week. And I don't think that they're going to be able to do much. I will say this, though, when we get to picks a little bit more, I do have a little bit of a trick up my sleeve because I think there could be some interesting things that happen in Lexington.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't think so. But
that's called a tease.
Tease. I don't know. I don't know
the game.
I don't know what this little ace up the sleeve thing you got going, but
I don't know if it's an ace. It might be a 2, but I got a little something.
2 of
that's okay. That's okay if you have 19.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're picking against the spread.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing you got in your back pocket there, boss, is Georgia always struggles against the spread at the grocery bag. So,
bingo.
I think I know your card.
There you go.
That was your card, but
it's a 2.
A&M at Florida though, like I feel like A&M's weird too, because that loss to Notre Dame, you look at that game at face value and you're like, oh, it's not a bad loss. Notre Dame's 5th in the country. They're pretty good. They're a physical team, and then they go out and lay an egg against Northern Illinois, and now that loss becomes awful. But A&M, but I thought at times played well enough to win that game and looked like the better team. To me, Texas A&M, it looked like a team they're just trying to find their way under a new coaching staff. And if you're an Aggie fan, I don't think I would press the panic button just yet. I know it's a lot of the same old what it feels like, but I think they're just trying to get used to Mike Elko. But Florida's bad. Yeah. Even with DJ Lagway, I'm not sold on them yet. So what do you guys think?
Texas A&M, I think, is around 119th in the country running the football.
Yeah.
And that is at the very minimum early in this season, a red flag, if not an absolute crisis. That doesn't help the quarterback. That doesn't help the weapons that you have. I'm a huge fan of Moose Muhammad. I'm a huge fan of some of the weapons that they have. But if you don't protect Connor Weigman with some little bit of a running game, he is not good enough to go Patrick Mahomes out there and do that. You've got to help this guy out. And the way you do that is to establish a run game. And was it Le'Veon Moss? He's a good little back. Turn him loose.
They just got to get their fitting, man. They're just their offensive line they're not gelled yet.
Do we know who's starting at quarterback for Florida? They said
it's got to be Lagway. If it's not Lagway,
it's Graham. It's either Graham Lagway or GJ Mertz.
I'm interested in that because Mertz is not. I think just a few hours before we hopped on here, they put the injury reports out. Mertz is not listed, meaning he's cleared to play. And Napier's press conference earlier this week was very coy, obviously saying, well, we're going to use both of them. Mertz is the starter. So he's playing games. I don't know. That to me is the big wild card, right? Because I think A&M defensively, if it's Mertz, I think we'll be able to, hold Florida to a low score because they're not very good. I also
if it's
saw their
Mertz, we're going to figure out how the interim head coach is going to do the rest of the way.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well,
look, if it's Lagway, I mean, the kid's got all the talent in the world, and he looked great last week against Samford. But what will he look like against, a better team that actually has athletes that can keep up with his receivers, put pressure on him? And it could go both ways, right? It could go, this kid's just the truth, and he's going to make plays, and A&M's going to be on the wrong end of the stick, basically, where, okay, this kid has his coming out party against A&M, or it could go pretty poorly and just, you chalk it up to, hey, he's a true freshman. This is his first big time game, and he was not ready for it. Coupled with the fact Florida doesn't have a ton of offensive firepower around him. So it's not totally on him if he has a bad game, but that to me is the wild card, right? Because I know if you're Elko, you're trying to prepare for both, I guess. And they're very different quarterbacks. So Lagway could come out there and, put A&M in the dirt, or he could kind of really struggle like a freshman might.
Here's the thing real quick.
You bring heat.
Graham Mertz would not have thrown for 458 yards last week.
Yeah, that's true.
He would have thrown for 275 or 315, and everybody talked about how good he looked doing that. And that alone tells you that you should just turn it over to DJ Lagway and at least play the hope card, or his G5 Billy is not going to be coaching next year. He's going to be LinkedIn Billy.
Next week, Steve. Next week.
Yeah.
Week.
He'll lose a fan base for sure.
He'll get tarmacked because A&M will shellac him. Because A&M, I think they need to, regardless of what happens, they need to crank up the heat on defense. If Mertz is in, he can't move well enough if you heat him up. DJ Lagway, he may panic if you heat him up. So I think you've got to get shots on them. You've got to disrupt their rhythm. I mean, you just got to flat get after it and play super aggressive, and then just let everything else fall into place, because I don't think this team is stable enough. This Florida team, I'm saying, is stable enough to withstand that. So if they get a little bit of struggle out of their quarterback, they'll fall apart.
If Mertz goes out there first, they're going to boo him.
Yeah.
That's where this fan base is right now. And it's almost at the point where let the freshman go out there and then spell him with the veteran from time to time, as opposed to starting with the veteran and waiting for something to go wrong. Because if Florida comes out and goes 3 and out, which is absolutely possible against that A&M defense, absolutely possible, that place is potentially could go nuclear to the point that affects the whole football team for the rest of the game.
But you don't think they're worried about? You don't think they're worried about maybe Shane Falco him a bit there? I mean, a true freshman against that defensive line is kind of a scary thought. I agree, he's got much more talent than Graham Mertz.
What other option do you have?
Yeah,
at least Graham Mertz has experience.
DJ.
They're up. I mean, Billy Napier's up against the wall right now. Why would he not?
Either that kid can play or not.
Yeah.
And Billy is.
I just feel like Graham would protect the ball better.
And in the age of helmet communication, it is much easier for a true freshman to be out there in front
That's
of that
true.
defense.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
and
as coach can be yelling, throw it away in his ear.
He should.
Yeah,
be.
I mean,
helmet comms and iPads. It's a lot smoother.
I would say this too. Like I'm looking back at the stats from the Miami Florida game. Miami had 3 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. This A&M defensive front is just as good or better than that Miami defensive front. So I think A&M is going to be bringing the pressure, especially if it's Lagway. I think Florida has 2 ways that they really could affect the A&M defense. One is Montrell Johnson, because Montrell Johnson is really the biggest weapon that offense has. A&M is obviously going to try and take that away, whether it's Mertz or whether it's Lagway. Whoever's going to be behind center, they're going to try and take away the run game. But Notre Dame eventually broke through and ran all over the Aggies in the second half. So it's going to be interesting to see what Florida does in terms of running the ball and if they're able to run on this A&M defense. The second way that they can win is if they start DJ Lagway, and like Hank said, if DJ Lagway is the truth. Because if you start a true freshman and this kid goes out and balls out while A&M's playing press coverage and loading the box and forcing you to win the game by throwing the ball, then this kid just has it. You also could be seeing potentially the future A&M starting quarterback in DJ Lagway. And I hate saying that for Florida fans, but it came down to Texas A&M and Florida.
Yeah.
If Napier gets fired, the transfer portal is wide open. And I know, I can almost guarantee you, A&M's not cheating. A&M's not cheating. But I bet
Not
you,
had discussions.
I bet you that someone is still in contact with DJ Lagway. Should
There's
he
no rule against the players.
portal? Yeah.
Steve,
We'll
you'll remember this, Steve. So this game has given me as an Aggie bad vibes because of that Lagway wild card. Who I can't even remember his name, but I have nightmares about him. I think it was 2015. He was Ole Miss's 5-star quarterback.
Shea Patterson.
Shea Patterson.
Yeah.
Patterson.
And he came in
2016.
Yeah, 2016 at Kyle Field. I was at the game and just lit us up. And then, never did a damn thing for the rest of his career at Ole Miss and transfers to Michigan, never to be heard from again.
It is the damnedest thing that Texas A&M struggles so much with the Mississippi schools.
Yeah.
It is the weirdest thing.
I'm looking at his
It's rough.
stats from that game. Absolutely crazy. Shea Patterson, 338 yards, 25 of 42 for 2 touchdowns and INT. His first game, pretty much, that he started in Kyle Field.
And Vanderbilt the next week completely embarrassed him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeb, going to your point about, and Bossman mentioned that, G5 Billy's got his back against the wall. So at this point, it feels like he's got to play Lagway because Lagway gives you the best opportunity to win this game. And we talked about in the Miami game, but this feels like it's a must win for Florida. This is absolutely a must win because we know how that back end of that schedule is, and it's horrendous. Now, they might sneak up and beat, Florida State now because God knows what's wrong with them right now. But the other 4, they don't have a prayer in, honestly.
I feel like both these teams are kind of in a must-win situation. I mean, A&M don't want to start off 1-2 in this.
Yeah, this is the end of the season already 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's going to change everything. By the way, I do think the most important person in this game is not Weigman, it's not Lagway, it's not even Graham Mertz, it's Hugh Wilson. If he's allowed to get off by Texas A&M, Florida's going to win the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Texas A&M is going to win the game anyway because I just don't think there's a whole lot that G5 Billy's going to do. So, what other games are intriguing that we want to talk about before we get to picks?
I want to talk about that Arkansas-Oklahoma State game. Arkansas had that game pretty much in hand and just blew it. I mean, it was awful.
You want to hear something?
Now, real quick before we do that, tell me Arkansas didn't look like vintage Vandy in that game for the way they self-destructed.
They did.
Oh, my goodness. Like that top shelf Vandy when they're just at the peak of their powers. That's what they looked like.
Yeah.
Just fall apart in the
you could
crucial times.
almost see the SEC coming through and then boom.
Yeah.
It was getting to the point where anytime they had a positive play, it's like, was that a legal formation? Was there holding? What did you do wrong? Oh, my goodness. They got away with it.
Yeah.
We'll get them next time.
And Taylor Green left about 10 touchdowns out there on the field. I just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But I had at school we play a super dog league where you pick the underdog and it's 4.5 points and you get the spread +5 if they win. The rules.
Sure, you college game day?
Yeah, we are.
Mm-hmm.
So we do. That's how we roll. I had Arkansas as my underdog, as my super dog. Lost by 0.5 point.
Yeah, Oklahoma State covered.
Yeah.
Lost by 0.5 point.
I know too. I know we were talking in the chat while the game was going on, and I was right on the verge. I was just waiting for Arkansas to implode, and I didn't want it to happen. I made my pick last week, and I'm taking Arkansas. I was riding with them. It was all looking good, and I was right on the verge of starting to take my victory lap, and then it all just fell apart late in the third. I literally was about to start taking the victory lap in the group chat, and then the muff punt happened. And I was like, "Oh, this is
Yeah, it's over.
It's done. D-U
Absolutely nuts.
Yep.
So, all right, are we ready?
We're ready.
Picks.
Yeah.
Picks are
Actually, before picks, how about Jackson Dart? 30 straight completions.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. He has an 87% completion percentage through 2 games.
Is that bad? Is that good?
Yeah.
man. That's impressive. It was also, by the way, before we get to it, it was a week of absolute chaos, not across college football, but also the SEC.
It was.
I mean, we didn't even talk about Houston versus Oklahoma. How in the world did Houston keep up with Oklahoma? I mean, that Houston team is absolutely garbage. And they went into Norman and held it. And they had them all the way to the end of the fourth quarter when Oklahoma had to get a safety to basically seal the game.
Yeah.
Wild.
Oklahoma's offensive line's garbage.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
And we thought that might be the case going into this football season, getting all transfer portal players.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion the transfer portal is a wonderful thing. A transfer portal rental is not a wonderful thing.
No, it's not.
No, because there's a fine line of having too many and relying on too much of the portal versus getting just that right balance of, hey, they add a little bit depth here, we got a starter there, that's fine. But like relying on 5 upfront guys from the portal, it's never good.
If you're in the chat and want to play along in picks, feel free. We'd love to hear from you. Also, put where you're picking from. Put your hometown so we know where that is from.
And just look on the bright side. You're not Colorado. So these spreads are brought to you by betonline.ag. It's where the game starts. Our first game.
And Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles.
Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles. Steve, thank you. Our first pick, ladies and gentlemen, is from Alabama. Alabama is 15.5-point favorites at Wisconsin. Jake, this is a neutral site game, right? Or is it at Wisconsin?
No, it's at Wisconsin.
Ooh, Camp Randall. Okay. All right. Bama's 15.5-point favorites. We're going to go in order of the spreadsheet. So it'll be Steve, myself, Jeb, Jake, then Becky, Cassidy, and then Hammer and Boss Man. So we'll go in order of the spreadsheet. So, Steve, can Bama cover?
Phil Longo, whenever he was at Ole Miss and they went over to Alabama, for whatever reason, this is back when Ole Miss had A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf and all of those wide receivers. They put up 7 points and they put up 3 points whenever they matched up against Alabama's athletes. I do not know if that was a Nick Saban issue or a Kirby Smart issue or a Pete Golding issue, or was that just a superior talent and he just is a kind of fraudulent offensive coordinator. He can do some stuff in the air raid, but it's kind of a simplistic style offense. So I'm going to take Bama in this game.
Yeah, I think ultimately I'm going to take Bama for a lot of reasons Steve said. And I just think that in watching Wisconsin, a really good friend of mine is a Wisconsin alumni, so we watched a lot of that game. And they just can't get it together. They just can't stay on the same page. They have flashes. But against a Bama team, as much as they struggled against South Florida last week, I don't think it's going to matter. I think they're just going to overwhelm Wisconsin, and they're going to cover this thing.
Yeah, we got a Missouri fan in the chat tonight.
Hey,
nice.
Hey, big game this weekend. Ranked matchup in Columbia.
Yeah.
In this game, I agree with both y'all. Wisconsin and Alabama are both 2-0, but I don't think Wisconsin's looked particularly impressive so far. And I know we could say that about Alabama in this last game, but if I have to bet on which team I think is going to bounce back harder, it's going to be Alabama. So I'm taking them to cover.
There's a lot that Alabama's got to show me this week. First of all, we just got to get health in the offensive line. I mean, losing Caden Proctor beginning of the year really hurt because we've been switching people around. We really didn't get going until like 6 minutes left to go in the game against USF when we actually plugged in another former starter, Elijah Pritchett, and that right tackle, and they just ran the ball behind him and had success. So I figure he'll be the right tackle this week. But yeah, I got to see more from Jalen Milroe. I mean, the dude's a freak athlete. We know that he can run, but can he make the plays with his arms? And you've got weapons on the outside. You got that 17-year-old Ryan Williams who just absolutely electric right now. You got other weapons, Kendrick Law, guys like that. He's got to get the ball to him. And right now, I think this offense can run a little bit smoother with a Ty Simpson running it. So I got to see more from Jalen Milroe, but I do think they do cover this game, and Cassie's taking them as well.
Becky, being the huge Hugh Freeze and Auburn fan that she is, and how much that actually means to her, it pains her to take Alabama in this game. And I think she might be trying to pull a jinx on it. Mm-hmm. Something's going on, but I do know that she is definitely pro Auburn. No doubt about it. By the way, last week I got in so much trouble.
I bet you did.
I saw the comment. She did watch.
Yeah, that's why he's wearing long sleeves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Shout out to Becky.
Mhm.
We need some Becky in our life. She needs to come
Yeah.
back. You tell her that.
Yeah.
Becky's probably snoring right now.
Yeah. Go ahead, boss man.
Could be. Well, I'm surprised that you guys are picking against former ACC Player of the Year Tyler Van Dyke.
Tyler Van Dyne?
Tyler Van Dyne. That's right. So I'm actually going to buck the trend a little bit here. I do think Alabama's going to win the game, but this one's at Camp Randall, which is a difficult place to play. I know it's an early game, but it's always difficult to go there and win. I think Luke Fickell is starting to get things. He will start to get things going there. I don't know that that's going to happen necessarily this year. But because it's a difficult place to play, because of the way that I saw Alabama play last week, just like you said, Jake, I don't necessarily trust Jalen Milroe in this offense just yet. I'm going to take Wisconsin to at least cover in this game.
I'm in the same boat. Won't add much. Same reasons Boss Man just said. I'm taking Wisconsin to cover. I don't know if I can trust Bama just yet. I think they win pretty easy. I don't think it's ever like even that close. I think Bama's kind of always got a 2-score lead, but I don't know if they'll be able to pull away. So I'll take Wisconsin to cover at home.
All
That's
right.
fair.
There you go. So the game we talked about, the Enigma game we talked about from our previous segment there, LSU 7.5-point favorites traveling to South Carolina in Williams-Brice Stadium. Steve, are you buying South Carolina or are you thinking LSU?
Listen, LSU's had trouble running the football all year. I mean, been terrible. Even against Nicholls State, they had trouble running the football. And South Carolina defensively, they're pretty good. And South Carolina has that 5-star freshman defensive lineman that's just killing it. And I think Williams-Brice and that noise is going to put the offensive line at a disadvantage. And if you can interrupt LSU's pass game, there's not a lot that LSU is going to be able to do. Now, you know, Lenore Sellers so far has not set the world on fire, but LSU's defense is absolutely putrid at the moment. So I'm going to go with South Carolina to at least cover this game and maybe win it outright.
You know, I think to me, South Carolina still scares me a little bit as far as how inconsistent they are. I mean, they look pretty pitiful in week 1 against Old Dominion. And then they come out and look relatively all right, but Kentucky looked just way more putrid than they did. So it's really kind of hard to tell just where they are. I mean, LSU didn't light the world on fire either against USC, but they showed flashes and they did some things well. And they seem like right now they're a little bit more on an even keel of, hey, you know what you got. You got a solid team. They're not great. They're not terrible. They're just like right there, just solid, above average team. And I think right now that's kind of the barometer of, at least at this point in the season, it's kind of how the more even keel team will probably end up winning this game. Whether they cover, I think they do cover, and they cover late. But I'm gonna take LSU here.
Yeah, I don't really want to take either one of these teams. I'm gonna be honest with you. I do think LSU's offensive line is good enough to handle a lot of the South Carolina pressure that they normally get. They are very good at it. I agree with that. But I feel like South Carolina's going to have more trouble in this game. The problem is, like Steve said, LSU's defense is just so bad. I feel like there's going to be a week that Sellers has a decent game against the SEC opponent. It's probably going to be this week. But I don't know. Both these teams are so inconsistent. Anything could happen. I'm going to take South Carolina to at least keep it close enough to cover. But I have no idea.
I actually changed my pick. Cassie did too, because we got talking about it earlier, and I got to looking. I mean, one of the coolest names of all in college football right now is Colin Guggenheim, and that is Nicholls State's running back. And he put up 145 yards rushing against LSU last week. Now, we know they lost.
Sounds like a
but I got to look, and I was like, wait, South Carolina's got Rocket Sanders, and this feels like a game Rocket Sanders can take over, and have a big day. So I changed my pick to South Carolina, and Cassie did too. So we're going to take South Carolina, and I'm with Steve. They could possibly win this outright.
Becky is going with LSU probably because of Garrett Nussmeier in the pass game, and they think they're going to be able to throw the ball and score enough points to where South Carolina just can't catch up. I think Becky's going to take LSU.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what she was thinking.
Yeah, she was breaking that down.
I'm with Becky. I think that LSU's got too much in the passing game. They have too many weapons. I trust Garrett Nussmeier much more than I trust Lenora Sellers at this point. Lenora Sellers right now, he's operating at a 55% completion percentage. He doesn't scare me through the air. I know LSU's defense, their secondary is terrible, but I think that LSU is going to try to take away that run game with Rocket Sanders and Lenora Sellers being able to run, put a spy on Lenora Sellers and try to make him beat you through the air. And I don't know that he can do that right now. South Carolina is, they have a good defense, but I think that LSU is going to start getting it figured out on offense. And, the other piece of it is that I don't think South Carolina is going to be able to repeat the performance of what they did last week. I think they're going up against a much better offensive line in LSU. And while their defense, I think their defensive line is going to be able to get into the backfield a little bit, but they're not going to have a 5-sack, 11 tackle for loss game like they did last week against this LSU offensive line. So I think that LSU just has too much in the end, and I think Nussmeier has a good game, and LSU pulls it off and covers.
I'm on the Tigers as well. I think actually, just to add maybe a different spin on this, LSU defensively, I think, at least in my mind, this should be a big game for Harold Perkins, who's kind of been MIA for a season and a half.
Do you know Perkins graded out lowest on his defense in the last game?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, the way I look at it, it seems to me like, the way he's been used the past couple years after his freshman year, or last year at least, like he's probably not a great linebacker at this point, but he can spy the quarterback and he can get after the quarterback. And Sellers is pretty good with his legs. So I think this is a good game for him to just spy Sellers and, the drill, right? You count a couple Mississippi. If he's back in the pocket, then you just go after him and Perkins can run him down. So I think it should be a good opportunity for him. We'll see if they, figure out how to use him eventually. But I will take LSU to cover here.
Carolina needs to break out the Cam Newton playback book and just run quarterback power and halfback zone. That is their path. Do not put the ball in Lenora Sellers' hands to throw. If you do that, it's going to be problematic.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I'm taking LSU. All right. Boston College travels to Columbia to take on the Tigers of Mizzou. Mizzou is 16.5-point favorites. For some reason, I love this Mizzou team. Steve, do you think they cover here?
Oh, yeah. I think they win this fairly easily. I think there's a lot of fool's gold that's going around because of what BC did to a bad FSU team over the weekend. Castellanos is a good little quarterback, but we have to remember this is Bill Bryan we're talking about. There's no O in that offense. So, yeah.
That's another one of the cheat guys.
Yeah. And Corey Batoon, the former Ole Miss Rebel, is the defensive coordinator at Mizzou. I think Mizzou wins this game. It'd be like a 42-14 type football game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be ugly, simply put. I mean, I think Mizzou's got a lot of firepower. It's not going to really matter what BC does. I think Mizzou's they're just a tough team, and they better enjoy this last win before Vandy comes to town. So,
oh, by the way, on this thing, I think it would be absolutely hilarious if the SEC championship game this year is Ole Miss and Missouri. I would laugh my butt off forever about that.
I would.
I'd be a little upset.
Yeah.
That's not funny. That's not funny.
I'm in. A&M's not going to get there this year, so that'd be funny.
Yeah.
Y'all are killing me. I don't know. I like Boston College a little bit better than y'all do. I think this game is going to be better than that LSU South Carolina game where anything can happen, and that's just going to be a cluster of whatever. But this game, I think, could actually be a good game. I like this quarterback for Boston College. I think he's playing really well. But I'm not going to pick against Missouri right now until they give me a reason to pick against them. And so far, their defense has been great. Their offense is really good. There's not a lot of holes for them right now. I don't know if they have the overall talent to compete with Georgia at this point. But Boston College, yeah, I'm going to take them to cover that.
Jake's rolling with Bill Bryan.
No, Steve took my thunder because I was going to say, there's no O in Bill Bryan's offense. So, give me Missouri all day.
I understand why you guys are going with Mizzou. I like Mizzou. I think they're a great team. They were great last year, and they still have a lot of that firepower that came back, especially on offense, except for my man Cody Shredder, Ninja Turtles. He's gone,
Yeah.
but they still have a good stable of running backs. They brought in a transfer running back. Brady Cook is still a solid quarterback. They got Luther Burton. They have a ton of weapons. But I know all the Tide people are haters on Bill O'Brien and that Bill O'Brien's not that good, but they do forget that Bill O'Brien put up about 40 points a game when he was in Alabama. And I know the play calling wasn't there, and there was a lot of issues on certain downs and different things like that. But I'm a believer in what Bill O'Brien's doing up there. I think, I know that Florida State's not that good. I know that they're more lost than the platoon in Tropic Thunder, which is a line I used in our recaps last week. But yeah, Florida State's super lost right now. But I think this Boston College defense is much better. I really love the quarterback for Boston College, like you said, Jeb, and I think he's actually the reason that Boston College is able to stay in this game. I think Mizzou wins fairly easily, but I think Boston College is able to cover the spread.
I'm taking Mizzou at home. All the reasons y'all said. Too much firepower on offense. I like the Boston College, what they got going, but it's still Boston College. I don't think they're going to go on the road to Columbia and keep this one very close. I'll take Mizzou.
All right. And for Becky, she wanted me to do this. This was her wanting this to happen. Her favorite radio commercial are the Real Million of Geniuses back in the day. So now I have to do this in the voice and sing it. And this was her request. And
Boston College versus Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
BC, they've got better Christians.
The best line from that.
They've got better Christians.
They're making fun of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They've got better Christians.
That's good.
Okay, sorry.
God.
So
Yes.
yeah, Becky loved that, and that was an excuse for her to use that.
There you go.
Valid.
Yeah.
Valid. All right. Our next selection, Tulane, Steve's other favorite team,
Yeah.
Tulane, Green Wave, traveling into Oklahoma. Oklahoma's only 14.5-point favorites here. Much maligned offensive line. Weird game last week against Houston. Here comes Tulane. Steve, are you buying it?
You see the logo, right? You see it. So I'm going to take Oklahoma. Mensa's a little bit too loose with the football. He's a very much a feast or famine quarterback, and Brent Venables are probably going to have a plan that can take advantage. Tulane would have beat Kansas State if he had a little bit of ball security. He got a little bit lost with the football and ended up costing them the ball game. He's going to be good. He has a little bit of Cam Ward in his game, but he's just not quite there.
Steve, I'm with you there. I love Tulane, just not in this game. I think they're going to struggle to score. I think this is going to be an ugly game where neither team really scores all that much. But I think Oklahoma's going to score enough to win by more than 14 points. So give me the Sooners.
Actually, Corey, I like your analysis. I'm just going to go a little bit on the other end and say they just don't quite get to that 14.5. Because I do like Tulane. I think Oklahoma will win the game, but I just feel like this is going to be a low-scoring game. And my hope, or not my hope, I'm sorry, just one thing that you have to always worry about with Oklahoma is they do have their first SEC game the week after this. So are they going to overlook Tulane a little bit? I don't know. I feel like Tulane will be able to keep up in this one. So I'm taking them to cover.
Boss man, you said it earlier, week 2 was just a weird week, and I think every team has got that out of their system now. So, and I think Oklahoma is one of those teams, and I just think they come out and they show why, they belong in the SEC and they can play with the big boys of the SEC. So, give me Oklahoma here, and Cassie's take them as well.
Okay, we're going to have to speed this up a little bit because we've taken 20 minutes to go through 4 games. By show of hands, Texas A&M beats Florida.
No, I'm taking A&M.
Well, I got them winning, but I think I got Florida covering.
Let's see. Everybody is on Ole Miss. Everybody is on Arkansas. Everybody's on Texas.
Besides Becky.
Everybody's on Vandy. My goodness.
Becky want to get the spread a little bit here.
Vandy's road trip. There's going to be some weather in that game. Hey, check out my episode with Dave Cohen, play-by-play broadcaster from Georgia State. That's a fun episode. It's live now, actually.
Yeah. And Boss Man, tell me why Kentucky's going to cover.
All right. It was actually that was the number 2 up my sleeve, was that the Dogs struggle in Lexington historically. They have over the last 12 years. In 2002, they won 16-6, 2020, 14-3, 2016, 27-24, 2012, 29-24. So for me, the 24.5-point spread is just a little too much. Georgia had all offseason to prepare for Clemson, and Clemson is not even close to the level of Georgia like we talked about in week 1 and like we saw on the field. And I don't think Kentucky is anywhere the match for Georgia either. I think Georgia is a much better football team. I think that Kentucky is, way below their level. But there is often times where Georgia, at least 1 or 2 games a year, will play down to their opponent. They did it last year when they went to Jordan-Hare when they played Auburn. And they did it last year as well when they played Missouri. Now, Missouri is a very good football team. Missouri was in the top 10, I believe, or maybe like number 12 when Georgia played them last year. But Georgia let Missouri hang around much too long. So
they were pulling away in that game, if I remember. But
they did, but it was late in the fourth quarter. And so, and I don't think they covered the spread in that game. So the only reason that I'm going with Kentucky is to cover the spread. I think that Georgia wins by, say, 20 points. It's a comfortable game at the end. But they do have trouble going into the grocery bag, like Corey talked about earlier. So I'm taking Kentucky to cover in this one. I think they have not necessarily a bounce back week, but they play much better than they did against South Carolina last week.
That honestly wouldn't surprise me all that much. It could definitely happen.
Yeah. And let's spend 5 minutes on this after we got through the picks and everything. Everybody's basically on Tennessee except for Kent State, and nobody gives a crap about Mississippi State and Toledo.
Wait. We need to do a full-blown analysis. Why is that game only 10 points, though? Mississippi State.
Because Mississippi State's garbage. They're terrible.
But so
they got run and gave up. That running back for Arizona State, it looked like Mike Allstott.
That is true.
That was the biggest concern. I didn't expect Mississippi State to be good. And obviously they came back and somewhat made that look like a game, I guess, if you just look at the box score against Arizona State. But the biggest eye-opener to me was the trenches, because they got whipped by Arizona State. I mean, they're not putting a bunch of guys in the NFL on the offensive and defensive line, and Mississippi State was getting whipped. So that's a bad sign.
Yeah. And somebody threw his NFL career by transferring to Colorado as well. That was a defensive lineman that would have helped him out. So that's absolutely terrible. But let's talk about what I want to talk about closing the show. And it's like everybody is basically on Auburn except for Becky, who's trying to do the reverse psychology thing as being the Auburn fan that she is.
Oh, I got a little thing too. So,
but Jackson Dart completed 30 straight passes. Could Auburn complete 30 straight passes on air?
No.
Nobody else. No pressure. Nobody watching. It's like the mystery man, invisible man. He can only turn invisible when nobody's looking.
No. Peyton Thorne's garbage.
Peyton Thorne is the worst quarterback in the SEC. He's worse than Lenore Sellers, in my opinion. If Hugh Freeze refused to sign a transfer portal quarterback in the offseason, he could have had Grayson McCall, but I mean, come on. That guy's struggling as well. Tennessee kind of ate his lunch. Yeah. But it's got to be time. It's like Hank Brown, Walker White. It has to be the point, because Hugh Freeze is at the point where if Auburn drops another game like they did against New Mexico State or Cal, losing to Cal is unforgivable. It just is.
Yeah.
But if he loses another one of those games, which he does every single year, he has to be on Harsin watch, right?
I think he's kind of already there.
Yeah.
The media is turning on him, straight turning on him right now.
They love that he's recruiting at a high level, but I mean, great to recruit, but you got to have the wins to follow.
Yeah, he said the coaches had one bad call all day, and it was the players that screwed up the game.
You can't blame. Oh my gosh!
Brian Kelly on him.
Yeah. You know who he sounds like?
Execute him.
This whole thing to me sounds like somebody that I'm very familiar with as an Aggie fan, Jimbo Fisher.
Oh,
I think from two different perspectives. One, he just threw a bunch of players under the bus. Jimbo liked to do that too. Execution. If our players execute. Well, at some point, Jimbo, it's your offense. Something's wrong with what you guys are doing in the coaching room, and you're not coaching them correctly. or your offense is the Cheesecake Factory menu that nobody understands what's happening on the field. So something's going on with that, and the fact that he is, he's kind of like Jimbo in the fact that he's throwing players under the bus. I do think, though, that he'll have a longer leash at Auburn because he's the big name, just like Jimbo was at Texas A&M. A&M gave Jimbo a pretty long leash because he had the big name and because all of the recruits were coming in. We've got a great recruiting class. We've got the number 2, number 3, number 1 class coming in next year, so we should have a really good year next year. The same thing is happening at Auburn where he's bringing in a ton of recruits. So it's just going to be constantly, hey, next year's going to be our year. Next year's going to be our year. But that will change if he goes, say, 6-6 this year, and if he keeps losing some of these games. There's no chance that they lose this game this week. Obviously, I looked up New Mexico. They're 0-2, and they lost to, I think, South Dakota or something, not even Montana State, So they're terrible. But Auburn, it is going to be interesting. The media does turn a little bit quicker than they do in College Station. They do turn quicker in Auburn than they do. So it'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out.
You know what this reminds me of, right? This is Auburn is Tennessee in 2008.
Yeah.
That's
not a bad comparison.
That is the era that they're going through, and they're getting ready to hire. They've already hired their Derek Dooley, and they've hired their Butch Jones, and that is what Auburn's doing right now.
How come Hugh Freeze didn't go after Diego Pavia, who came into Jordan Hare and
destroyed
his tail
him
right in his face? And
Pavia only plays for winning programs.
Well, But I like your point, Steve, about, it's one thing, he's in year 2. A lot of people will say that Harsin left the cupboard bare, which based on how he was recruiting, I think is fair. But to your point, Steve, I don't understand how you don't go get a transfer quarterback. You saw what Peyton Thorne was. It did not work out last year, and it looks like we're watching reruns this year, and he's got no excuse for that. It's one thing to say we don't have enough talent across the board or we don't have enough depth across the board, but quarterback, he could have got a transfer and he didn't, and he's going to have to eat that this year because I don't think they're going to do well.
He thinks he is Steve Spurrier in his head. No matter what happens, we will make this work. If I coach him up, he'll be exactly what I want him to do. And all of a sudden he'll turn into like the second coming of a quarterback. But that's not the case. When Hugh Freeze was at Ole Miss, every year there was a game that you just scratched your head. Ole Miss was ranked 8th or 9th in the country and went to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and got beat 30-0 by a 5-win Arkansas team in 2014.
Yeah.
The year after that, they lost to Memphis. They went down to Florida, who ended up going to the SEC championship game, but they just absolutely got rolled. 2016, I don't even want to talk about 2016, other than the Texas A&M game is terrible. 2013, every single year, there's a stretch. The man has lost 4 times to Vanderbilt in his coaching career. He gets credit for beating Alabama twice, which he did. Nobody can take that away from him. But once a year, you kind of are what you are at this point. And what that tells me, he is a good big game coach that can pull an upset from time to time, but he is also a guy that will lose you 1 or 2 games a year.
So I'll talk about it, but my brother-in-law is a big Auburn fan. And, when they hired, Hugh Freeze, it was like, well, the reason why we got him is because he beat Alabama twice. And now, I'm like, well, what about winning and like championships? I said, what about national championships? Alabama's focused on winning national championships. They're focused on beating Alabama. That's all they care about. They got to change their mindset. But I want to say this real quick. The reason why I picked Auburn, every time I pick them to win or cover the spread, they end up losing outright. So let's go. I'm picking them to win, but let's go. But
Steve, you do make a good comparison though to Bush Jones, because that's kind of how it was at Tennessee after Derek Dooley. There was just nothing at Tennessee. There was no talent. He did not recruit at all, especially in certain positions. Offensive line, he didn't recruit an offensive lineman for like 2 years.
I know.
It's the worst thing I ever saw in my life. And Bush Jones had to do a lot of work. He had to do a lot of work building that team back up, and he did. There was just only so far he could go. He was never going to win a national championship. He was not going to win the SEC. He just wasn't a good enough coach for that.
That's all they needed. They needed him to set up Jeremy Pruitt to set up.
If it had been somebody besides Pruitt,
Yeah.
you can't fill at your next pick. That's the problem. Our next coach.
Well, see, if Hugh Freeze is actually Butch Jones, which we think he is, following Derek Dooley, that means that Auburn has one more dud that they have to get before they can get somebody that can fix this, which means they're about 5 to 7 years away from getting back to where they want to be.
Is Hugh Freeze building champions of life, though? That's
brick by brick, baby.
Yeah.
Brick by brick. Yeah.
I don't know what Auburn's really after either. I mean, Auburn, they had Gus Malzahn. That guy beat Alabama 3 times. They fired him. They ran him out of town.
Went 9-3 every single year, pretty much.
Yeah, every single year. That wasn't good enough. And
No.
the problem is they are comparing themselves to Alabama, who's had the standard in
They
college
just Nebraska themselves.
Yeah.
Let's be real about this. Tennessee did the same thing and got themselves in this problem when they ran Phil Fulmer off.
Right.
Nebraska
They
with-
did the same thing. There. Nebraska did the same thing. Ole Miss with David Cutcliffe back in the day kind of got themselves in trouble as well. Schools that think they know better and they deserve to do whatever, and their school is just good enough to make it happen on their own, they're always just going to circle the drain. It's the reason I'm watching Alabama right now. Is Kalen DeBoer going to be allowed to run his own program and do what he needs to do? Or is this a situation with Roosters and good old boys are kind of weaseling back into the picture to where they can do what happens at Texas and at Texas A&M so prevalently?
We're going to have a Mike Sheila situation again.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at there. It's the reason I always talk about and say Ray Perkins. It's because if the Boosters have a chance to get power after Nick Saban took it away for 20 years, they're going to.
Yeah.
I think there is one thing that can really help Auburn, though, and that's a call from #1 Hugh Freeze fan, Becky. Becky needs to give Hugh Freeze a call and set that guy straight, because losing to Cal and Jordan Hare isn't going to be – that's not okay with anybody, and I know it's not okay with Becky. So
no, definitely not.
Huge.
They've got to change quarterbacks, though, if they want to be successful. It's bottom line.
But who do you change? The problem is, who do you change to?
I mean –
you didn't recruit
somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he was
you have
talking
Walker
this week
White,
about
who's a true freshman.
I mean, a few years ago, South Carolina pulled a dude out of the stands and played a whole year.
true.
So, I mean, do that.
forgot about that guy.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you're a GA, right? Okay, well, you're a quarterback now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's so inexcusable about it, though, is that you had these 3 guys that you recruited. A couple of them were 4 stars, and they're in the back, and you're looking in practice, and you're saying Peyton Thorne is the best option we got.
Right.
And we didn't go into the transfer portal and get somebody. I mean, even Malachi Nelson was available. I know he's not starting at Boise State, but I would bet you that Malachi Nelson probably right now would start at Auburn. Boise State had a returning starter. I mean, it's not like they couldn't have taken a flyer on Malachi Nelson and just seen what he could have done.
Jaden Rashada?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's riding the bench.
Yeah.
Ole Miss's top 3 quarterbacks would start at Auburn.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So would Georgia's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Hugh Freeze is talking about shrinking the playbook in Peyton Thorne's second
Hugh Freeze
season.
would look like Randy from South Park if he had Nico.
Yeah.
Those of you that don't understand that visual, just look it up. You'll see. All right, 2 minutes. We hope you enjoyed what.
Well, that was a fast hour.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Football season.
Fun talking ball.
Right.
That's right.
So we are SEC After Dark. We are with you every Wednesday night at 8 Central, 9 Eastern for a lots of fun. Steven Willis, the king of Ole Miss podcast. I think he's up to 25,000 subscribers.
I'm under 100 from 10,000.
There you go.
Ooh.
No.
Hey, I need two subscriptions to get to 400. So
There we go.
locked on Vandy.
Big move.
You got Jake Thomas, soon to be Bama After Dark, absolutely crushing it there. He's going to represent Bama here pretty soon. Jeb Beecham, whenever you get a podcast going, and
Partner progress.
and the McDonald's ice cream machine, and our newest podcast on After Dark, Biscuits After Dark. Boss Man and Hammer.
We're gonna have to think about naming on that one. I don't know.
I don't know if that's the name you want to go with, but
it'll be something after dark.
It fits for now.
Good to have you tonight.
Yeah, Rob, glad to find you too. Tell a friend.
Every Wednesday night, 9:00. East.
And I used to cover the bookends of the SEC, Georgia and Vandy, but Vandy's no longer. They're no longer on the. They're now in the middle.
They're a top 10 program in the SEC, but they're a top 10 program.
Yeah.
They're no longer on the
12
spectrum.
Hey, 6 of the top 7 in the AP poll are SEC teams. So being in the top 10 SEC team is not a bad place to be. Honestly, if Vandy beats Georgia State before we get out of here, should Vandy be ranked on Monday?
Yes. They're already receiving votes. They will. I said on my show they'll be somewhere in the 23 to 25 range.
Thank you, Amy.
With if they win, Amy, tell a friend.
That'd be cool.
Bring a friend next time. So SEC After Dark. We'll catch you back here next week. Until then, arrivederci. See you in the promised land. Go Dogs. Anchor down.
Howdy,
Balls.
Roll Tide.
Dig 'em. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, y'all.